What's going on, guys? Just got back from Shin Godzilla a couple hours ago. Obviously, it finally came out in theaters in the United States. Been waiting forever for this movie to come out. Got my ticket right here. Shin Godzilla. Yeah, awesome movie. I am really happy I went to go see that. I mean, obviously, I was going to go see it because I love Godzilla, but seriously, like, I can't even like explain how good this movie was to me. At least I really enjoyed this movie a lot. It really does feel like a traditional Godzilla movie, except it's new. Like you get all this new stuff, but it it really does have like a classic feel to it. A lot of things they did to do that is obviously having a more like horrifying looking Godzilla, kind of like throwback to '54. But things they did with the movie that make it good and throwback to that is 54 roar. Confirmed. It's 54 Goji's roar for most of the time Godzilla roars. Like 100%. There's only a couple other different Showa roars in there, but most of the time it's completely unedited original Godzilla roar. Absolutely brutal. Fucking insane. The classic Godzilla theme is in the movie. Two, that gives you a lot of like nostalgia and like hits you in the feels when the classic theme is playing, when Godzilla is basically just rampaging. uh wow. Showa sound effects for tanks and explosions and shit like that, that helps a lot with the nostalgia factor as well. Like i love I love that they did that. That is such a cool like effect to do in like a modern movie, but have those really old sound effects. It just brings like a different like level of like experience to it. It's so unique. um the music in the movie is phenomenal. The composer, whoever it was, just did a fantastic job with integrating the old music, obviously, plus the new, which is very like Evangelion-esque, like operas. There's actually like the main Evangelion battle theme is in the movie as like a remix for a lot of like the working montages for like the people in the movie, which is really cool. It brings like this strange like element, like wow, this feels like an Ava movie. I mean, it is by Hideki Anno, so I love it. It works so well. Now, whenever I hear that song, I'm gonna think of Evangelion and Godzilla, which is just awesome. Um, the CGI is, I mean, it's Japanese CGI. It's what everyone is expecting. It's not Hollywood tier, but it's not terrible. There's only a couple times in the movie that it actually might notice something that's wrong, or it doesn't seem like it worked very well. But other than that, it looks fine. I mean, only when you get super close to Godzilla, sometimes it does look funny. But like all the distance shots and things like that, it work. It looks fantastic. The movie is filmed fantastically as well, with all the angles and different kinds of like camera like effects. There's some point of view kind of shit, like, and not like found footage kind of stuff, but like point of view. Um, it has some weird humor with a lot of the camera too. And then, well, storyline for the movie is awesome. Um, it it grabs you right from the start. It just begins. Everything, this whole shitfest, just starts and it doesn't stop. It just keeps hitting you with things and things and things and things and things. And if you stop paying attention for like 5 minutes, you're not gonna know what the hell happened, because there's so many like subtitles and cuts and different scenes and so many words. You have subtitles on the top of your screen, subtitles on the bottom of your screen. If you miss one thing, then you're not gonna know what's going on. You can't even like skim through some of the scenes and fully understand what's going on, because you have to pick the top or bottom subtitles. What do you want to read? Because it's more of like a all the human characters are like government officials, basically, in different departments, working out whether or not like which department takes what for this situation. Because basically it starts out, missing ship shows up, some scientist, whatever, Yashimaru, or it's not the Yashimaru, it's something Maru, which is kind of like throwback to '84 cameo, where '84 starts out with the Yashimaru abandoned, no crew, except everyone's dead down below. It's kind of that. It's something else Maru, except it's an abandoned. It's not like it's like a little personal ship. It's not like a big one. It's just a little tiny one. And explosion in the water. What is it? Volcano, whatever. Water spills into the subway, or not subway. Traffic tunnel on flow. Everyone it thinks it's just some random event, nothing. The main protagonist is like, there's a lot of footage surfacing online saying this is something alive, this is a biological creature. Everyone, makes fun of him, whatever. This is no place to joke, and the government officials. Turns out, it's Godzilla. Big surprise, he was right. Government announces, no worries, the eel version of Godzilla is, not strong enough to support its own weight, can't go on land. Goes right on land. Then you get like these dark angles of Eel Godzilla chasing people down the streets, basically just stomping on them, whatever, just chasing them, and he's super derpy and doesn't know what's going on. He's just like, I'm a monster. It's really cool. Basically, then like evacuations, the government trying to decide which department handles this. The self-defense force can't mobilize because this is an invasion from another country, so none of the rules for the self-defense force apply. They can't attack a biological creature without rewriting bills and laws. Are they going to get support from other countries? Things like that. Well, this Godzilla is basically just ripping a hole through Japan. This little eel version of Godzilla that can't even support himself. He's dragging his face along the ground while he's stomping on people. And then eventually he tries to prop himself up in a building. The building collapses, and then he actually just transforms into this next version, which is like the red turkey Godzilla. And he just nuclear fissions, just transforms right there, and finally they have the ability to attack him. They pass things, and the helicopter pilots that got sent are like, this is not what we were informed of, because they didn't know we mutated. And they can't even attack them, or they can't even attack Godzilla because old people get in the way, and they can't shoot at Godzilla because there's some homeless old people near Godzilla. And then Godzilla just runs off and goes back into the water, from being completely random movement to just going back into the water. Then they're trying to figure out ways, like, after Godzilla leaves, they're analyzing why he moved the way he did. He was just wandering until he ended up just running into the water. They eventually find out that all of the path that he traveled was radioactive, so they come to the conclusion that his transformations were due to nuclear fission and just self-mutation. To rapidly evolve to now being on land, like just forced evolution of himself just instantly. And then he needed to cool himself off from the fission, so he went back into the water. And then they're trying to find a way to stop him, and they think of the best way to do that would be to basically use a chemical that would stop the nuclear fission almost. It's like a blood coagulant they're going to freeze him with. And all of this time they're thinking that this turkey Godzilla, not the biggest, not actual Shin Godzilla, but like the red one, is what they're envisioning. And they think that this plan is going to work, and they just need a way to execute it. And then there's like a bunch of basically like one of the weird humor things that happens is like hippies are in the street saying Godzilla is God, don't kill him. But that time when Turkey Godzilla is actually just kind of like wandering around, kind of stomping on things, that's when they're playing the classic theme. That's when they reveal that he is has the classic roar. Like right when he starts to mutate, he just roars, and it's the classic Godzilla roar with the theme. And then when Eel Godzilla is just running around, it's just playing Persecution of the Masses, the new theme for the movie. And all this is kind of just like it strikes awe into you because it's executed so well. And then obviously just goes to them trying to figure out ways to combat this, and then obviously the government trying to figure out like what department this falls under, what they're going to get outside support from other countries. How do we fight this? Because it is an organism, so it can be killed. And then there's a lot of people saying that Godzilla, it's a god incarnate. They finally assign a name to it. They actually call it Godzilla, English, Gojira in Japanese, and the way that they get the name from it is the Odo Island legend of the dragon or whatever, which is like the original foundation for Godzilla's theme, or name, not theme, from 54, which is really another really cool cameo. Like, this movie just has a bunch of really strange cameos in it for the Godzilla franchise, and then the Eva franchise with the Evangelion music in it, which is really just awesome blend because the music styles are so similar. And then obviously they're thinking that they can come up with this way to basically inject these chemicals into him somehow if they mobilize him, and they'll be able to basically freeze him, kill him, whatever. And then he resurfaces again with another forced evolution, and then we have full-on huge Shin Godzilla. And they're not prepared for this at all. So they have just like a line of defense along this river that separates where he is in Japan from Tokyo, because he's heading towards Tokyo again. And all of their attacks are obviously ineffective. Helicopter, miniguns, missiles, artillery, tanks, everything just bounces off Godzilla, doesn't even stop him. The best they do is slow him down, and then he just kicks a bridge on some tanks, and that's the end of that. And he basically just wipes out that military force, makes it incapacitated. Like, we couldn't stop him, so now Godzilla is just marching into Tokyo. And the next thing that they try to do, they're starting to evacuate the government officials, and then their next plan of attack is to just try to bomb him with some fighter jets. And Japan's bombs just aren't strong enough. They're just hitting him, and they're just blowing up, and it's not doing anything. So you just have Godzilla marching through the city, power outages. You just have this really, like, terrifying silhouette of Godzilla just destroying the city, and they can't do anything to stop it. And then the US just sends in some B-2 stealth bombers to just drop massive amounts of fucking payload on him. And what it does is it actually lands right inside of his spines, basically right here, and they go into him and they blow up, and it actually spews blood and shit everywhere, and actually really hurts Godzilla. And it was like a successful attack. So basically Godzilla gets pissed, and that's when the first time we get to see his beam in the movie is he starts to just blow smoke all over the ground, which just covers all of like that area of Japan he's in, and then it just all ignites into the flames, and then there's everything is on fire, and then his beam just keeps getting more concentrated until it gets to that like purplish pink, and then he just looks up and he just cuts one of the B-2 bombers in half. And then they're like report like Godzilla has this new weapon, some kind of weapon from the front. So the other two B-2 stealth bombers are like, let's go get revenge, let's go hit him again. So they come back around for another, obviously, attack, and they try to drop bombs on him, and then that's when Godzilla just uses his new, like, back lasers, and he just shoots lasers everywhere into the sky, and hits all the bombs and destroys the planes. And that's because he has this new ability where he can sense incoming threats, basically, and immediately wipe them out without them ever actually getting to him, because now he realizes, hey, they can hurt me. So he just doesn't let anything hit him anymore from that point. And now there's no hope left, and he destroys the bombers, and then he just starts using his normal beam again, and he just wipes out so much of Japan just with his normal beam. He ends up killing the prime minister's helicopter just pure coincidentally, and just basically annihilates that area of Tokyo. And then obviously from expelling so much energy, he just basically just stops moving and goes into a sleep. And that's when the next part of the movie kicks in, where obviously the verdict is either you guys can try to do your chemical approach to kill him, or the US is going to nuke him and all of Tokyo, and the world will have your back, and we will help you rebuild Tokyo, but we have to destroy this threat here before it spreads someplace else. Because one of the things they find is when they bombed him, and they actually blew one of his dorsal fins off, and they realized that that is actually the way he almost reproduces or spreads himself, is that he can regrow new versions of himself from other pieces of him. So that spine is almost like starting to grow more mass and developing into a new creature. And then they try to use that DNA sample to test their chemicals and stuff like that, to try to basically find a way to stop it from having nuclear fission, so they can cool it off and make sure Godzilla freezes or whatever. And they the ship from the beginning of the movie was actually a scientist's ship who predicted Godzilla 7 years ago, and he knew things about Godzilla. This is where the movie gets super hard to follow, because there's so much stuff happening, you can't really read all the subtitles, so it'll be interesting with the dub what actually happens, if they even try to dub this, because there's so much dialogue. He had like this chart left behind that nobody can interpret it, and then once they start to fold it up, they get like all these like chemical equations and things like that to help them develop the chemical they need. And they formulate this plan how to kill Godzilla with it, basically. And it just kind of gets, you don't get much explanation from there, because it actually just starts to go through with the plan. And Godzilla's still asleep at this point. A part of his tail kind of just breaks off in one angle. Just, that's the only thing that happens at night. And then during the day they start their attack, and they ram trains into his feet, and it wakes him up, obviously, from his rest, and they start to use ships and artillery and bombs and buildings to collapse things on top of him just to try to get him to fall over so they can get this chemical that they have him, basically like almost like fire trucks, to spray it into his mouth to see if they can, you know, get as much in him as possible to effectively make like the coagulation work to start to kill him. And after a couple different like montages of that, of them just blowing him up with like demolitions of buildings and train bombs and all this weird stuff, they end up like getting all of the fluid into him, not after losing some of the trucks to his beam, and the way they're distracting him with these UAVs that have missiles and stuff, and they're just shooting at him to get his attention because he's using that like extrasensory perception to see what is what, and he's using his spine lasers to destroy all this stuff, and they're slamming him in the feet just to see if they can get as much, you know, of his attention as possible so they can knock him over again. And they ended up getting all of it in his mouth, and his skin starts to like harden and stuff, and he stands up and he's like roars, and then he just freezes, and he's like negative 192 degrees Celsius, and he's just like solid, like frozen. But he's not really dead. They just freeze him for like the final stand in the movie. So you get like kind of like the aftermath of everyone being like so relieved, and like what all the people that are left alive, like what they're gonna do in the future with the situation and things like that. And you just have giant Godzilla statue in the background because he's frozen but not dead. So basically the verdict is he could unfreeze at any time in the future, and then what are you gonna do? But they don't ever go into that. And then like the last kind of thing they show in the movie is just like an upwards like kind of camera angle following his tail all the way to the tip, where there are Godzilla spawn. They're humans, they're like skeletal humans, they're half reptile, and they have Godzilla spines just kind of like separating out of his tail, like his tail was turning into that, so they could go and they could colonize. Because one of the things they said is, since Godzilla can self-mutate at will at any time, he could just make spawns that have wings and fly to different areas, because he's basically a god incarnate, more advanced than man. He can self-mutate, self-evolve to any situation, which is how he got to where he is from being that organism that was in the ocean. And that's really it, which leaves the door open for sequels if he like thaws or whatever, or if another organism shows up, or one of his spawns from a piece of him grows. Because basically what they say his origin was a prehistoric organism that found the massive amounts of nuclear waste that was dumped into the ocean after World War II, and itself mutated and evolved to not only adapt to that environment, but to like harness it as an energy source, which why it gave him the power to self-mutate at will, and that basically triggered that. So there could have been another creature that had the same effect, so we might get more like Shin Godzillas in the future. They're not going to look exactly like him, obviously, because it's a one-of-a-kind thing, but there might be more Godzillas waiting in this universe. Plus, if any of those pieces that got blown off him, or he left something in the ocean, that could also grow into a Godzilla. Just, there's so many different, like, things that could happen, which is why this movie is incredible, because it requires so much, like, thought. There's just so many like possibilities and things that happen in this movie that really just fills your mind almost, which is something that we didn't get with like 2014. We got like a straight up like normal just storyline that wasn't super interesting. We got an old dinosaur Godzilla fighting old dinosaur bug with not interesting human characters, where this has a bunch of super interesting human characters with a plot that's actually like reminiscent to Godzilla, and it's non-stop, boom 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 boom. It keeps your attention. And then with like an origin story that's new, people might not like it, but Godzilla has a bunch of new origin stories. They're just gonna have to get used to it by now. He's like 62. It's gonna happen. So with that, it was incredible with the way that the story was, the way Godzilla origin was explained, how it was filmed, how all of the characters worked together, the way it is. It's like just politicians trying to figure out ways that they can actually execute and go through with plans, and just with like the cameos and the classic like Godzilla feel you get from this movie, It's absolutely incredible. Like, it's going to be in theaters for a couple more days still, so if you haven't like gotten tickets, or you're kind of on the fence of going to go see it, just go see it, because this is really an experience for like the Godzilla like franchise. It's different, but it's also not different. It's really what you need right now as a Godzilla fan, is just something. It's new, but it's so, you just get that classic Godzilla feel, which is fantastic. And it's almost, it's horrifying. Like, this movie is dark, it's messed up. It's not a simple movie. There's so much complexities and strange things to think about. As I was leaving the theater driving home, I had an hour drive home. I was just thinking about all of the stuff that happened and what possible outcomes there could be, which none of that happened with me with 2014. It was just, when the movie was over, it was over. Like, okay, cool, that was a new Godzilla movie. This one, there's just so much thought that comes in after it, which is what I expect from Hideki Anno, because that's what happened when I finished watching Evangelion. Is there's so much to think about because it's so overwhelming, which is incredible, because now we have something to discuss and think about until next year when we get the Godzilla anime movie that's coming. So if you haven't seen this, or you haven't bought tickets for this, do it if you can. Go see this movie. Go see Shin Godzilla. If you can't watch it, just when it comes out on DVD, pick it up and watch it, because I doubt you'll be disappointed. And if you are disappointed from it and you're watching this, let me know why. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion, because I'm giving you mine, so I'd like to hear yours. Just give me a respectful opinion, and I'll read it, and we can have a discussion about it. But that's what I'm thinking of this movie. I really enjoyed this. It was just such a new experience. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and if you're stuck all the way through this, thank you so much. That means so much to me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. I love doing this stuff for you guys. So yeah, Shin Godzilla, 10 out of 10. I want to see it again, but I can't just drive another hour down to Lansing, Michigan from where I am just to see it again. But you guys need to go see this movie. And peace out. I'll see you in the next one.